Hello students, welcome back. So today we are continuing with the MCQs regarding the chapter sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now look at the question number 68. The landing platform for pollen grains is. So which is the landing platform for pollen grains means when we look at the structure of gynoecium comprising of three parts, the stigma, style and ovary. So usually this stigma, it is the landing platform for the pollen grains because all the pollen grains will be landing on the stigma. So this stigma, it will provide the landing platform for the pollen grains. And next question, the bulged basal part of the pistil is. So the bulged basal part of the pistil, this complete thing is called as gynoecium or pistil. So the bulged part of the basal part of the pistil is known as ovary. So this is ovary. And next one, elongated slender part of pistil is. So this is the elongated slender part, and this slender part of the gynoecium or pistil, it is known as style. The slender and elongated portion of the gynoecium is called as style. And next one, megasporangium. So this megasporangia or megasporangium, it is referred to as, you know that megasporangium can also be called as ovule because the other name for ovule is also called as megasporangium, and these megasporangiums which are present in the megasporangia, it is also called as ovule. When we look at the structure of ovule, within this gynoecium we will find many number of ovules, and these ovules are only called as megasporangia. And next question, what are the parts A to E in this below figure? Actually the given diagram, it is a typical dicot embryo, and this typical dicot embryo comprising of several parts. So here we'll see the labelings. So A, so this A region, it is called as a plumule. It is the plumule part. And B represents the two cotyledons. B represents two cotyledons. And C, it is the hypocotyle region. You know, the region below the embryonal axis is called as hypocotyle, and here there will be a epicotyle also, but they have labeled hypocotyle. And D is the radicle, and E is the root cap. So correct option is A. And next question, plants having single ovule in ovary are. So in single ovary, they comprising of a single ovule. In which of the plants we can find single ovule means here wheat, paddy and mango, all these comprising of single ovule. Here we can clearly observe that if you find a single seed in each plant, it indicates that they comprising of single ovule because ovule only develops into seed. That's why in all these plants we can find the presence of single ovule. So the answer D is correct. And next question, what represents A in the following figure? So here they have given two cotyledons. These are the two cotyledons we can clearly observe. So the correct answer is two cotyledons. And next question, more than one ovule is found in the ovary of. If you find more than one seed in a fruit, we can say that it is the multi-ovulate condition because the number of ovules are many. In wheat we will find only one ovule, one seed, even in paddy one seed, but in papaya we will find many number of seeds, which means they contain many number of ovules. So more than one ovule is found in the ovary of papaya. And next question, the stalk attaching ovule to placenta is. For this we need a diagram of ovule. See, when you look at the ovule, the structure of ovule, so here they are asking the part, the stalk attaching ovule to placenta is. The stalk of the ovule is called as a funicle, and this funicle is only attached to the ovule. See, this funicle part, it is usually attached to the parenchymatous tissue called as a placenta. So here the correct answer will be the funicle. So it is the funicle. And next question, the junction between ovule and funiculus is. The junction between ovule and funiculus. Actually, it is the region where the stalk of the ovule is attached to the body of the ovule, that is called as a hilum. See, in this diagram you can see. So here the point of attachment of stalk to the body of the ovule is called as a hilum. So that is only they are asking the junction between ovule and funiculus is called as hilum. And next question, the tips on the ovule where integuments are absent are called. So where the integuments are absent means usually the integuments will be covering the entire ovule except at the region of micropyle. So in the region of micropyle we can find the absence of integuments. So this is the tip where integuments are absent. So the correct answer is micropyle. The tips on the ovule where integument are absent are called as micropyle. And next question, the end opposite to micropyle end is called as the chalaza. The exact opposite end of micropyle is called as chalaza. See, if this is the micropyle, the exact opposite end of the micropyle is called as chalaza. And next question, the mass of cell present inside the integuments of megasporangium having abundant food reserve is. So you know that around the embryo sac, if this is the embryo sac, around the embryo sac or within the integuments there is a parenchymatous mass of tissue called as nucellus, which is abundant in food reserve. So the correct answer will be nucellus. It is the mass of cells present inside the integuments having abundant food reserve. So it is nucellus. And next question, female gametophyte of angiosperm is referred to as. You know that male gametophyte is the pollen grain, whereas the female gametophyte is said to be the embryo sac, which is present in the nucellus part. So within the nucellus there will be a female gametophyte called as embryo sac. And next question, embryo sac is formed by. So embryo sac, it is actually formed from the megaspore, or we can say that the functional megaspore only develops into the embryo sac. See, for example, see in this diagram, you can observe this is the megaspore mother cell. This megaspore mother cell, when it undergo meiotic division, it results in the formation of 4 haploid megaspores. Out of 4, the 3 will degenerate and only 1 becomes functional, and this functional megaspore only develops into embryo sac. But initially we will call it as megaspore. Then when we will call it as embryo sac, if there are several mitotic divisions takes place in the embryo sac or in the megaspore, then later a mature embryo sac will be obtained. So this is the mature embryo sac, and this mature embryo sac can be obtained by the mitotic divisions which takes place in the functional megaspore. So the correct answer is embryo sac is formed by the equational divisions in the megaspore. And next one, how many embryo sacs are present in an ovule? Usually in each ovule a single embryo sac can be seen. Most generally only one embryo sac can be seen in each ovule. And next one, what is the functional megaspore referred to as? The functional megaspore is the megaspore that only develops into female gametophyte. The functional megaspore that only develops into a female gametophyte called as embryo sac, that is only called as a functional megaspore. And next question, identify the parts of A to F in the following figure. So this is a typical embryo sac of female gametophyte comprising of 7 cells and 8 nuclei. So you will come to know why it is called as 7 cell and 8 nuclei. But here actually this is the chalazal end, and this is the micropylar end. So at the region of chalaza we will find 3 cells, and these 3 cells are called as antipodals. So A refers to antipodals, and B, these are the 2 polar nuclei. C is the central cell. D, it is the egg, the female gamete called as egg, and E represents the 2 synergids. The 2 synergids which are present on either side of the egg. And F, these are the cellular thickenings which are present in the synergids called as filiform apparatus. They are the filiform apparatus. Then the correct answer will be option B, because A represent antipodals, B polar nuclei, C is the central cell, and D is the female gamete called as egg, and E is the synodsheets, and F is the filiform apparatus. So option A is correct. Next question, monosporic development is referred to as. So here we will know monosporic development is there, bisporic development is there. Likewise, here monosporic development refers to the single megaspore develops into embryo sac. Because out of 4 megaspores, 3 will degenerate and only 1 becomes functional. That functional megaspore develops into embryo sac. That single megaspore development into embryo sac is termed as monosporic development. So it is a single megaspore develops into embryo sac. Next question, what is the ploidy level of nucellus, megaspore mother cell, functional megaspore, and female gametophyte? So here, when we take the diagram, see in the structure of ovule, here the ovule, it is usually diploid in nature, and in this diploid megasporangium or ovule, this embryo sac is only haploid. So other than embryo sac, remaining all are said to be the diploid. Here the question asking is, what is the ploidy level of nucellus? So nucellus, it is present around the embryo sac, that's why it is a diploid. And they are asking megaspore mother cell. So megaspore mother cell, that is any one of the nucellus cell only develops into megaspore mother cell. That's why megaspore mother cell is also diploid in nature. And functional megaspore, the megaspore mother cell which undergo meiotic division results in the formation of 4 haploid megaspores, and this is the functional one as they are obtained as a result of meiotic division. Here they are haploid in nature. All the megaspores are haploid in nature. So here the functional megaspore is also haploid. And female gametophyte. So female gametophyte is the embryo sac, and you know that embryo sac is also haploid. So here the ploidy level will be 2n. Nucellus, it is a diploid. Megaspore mother cell, diploid. Functional megaspore, haploid. And female gametophyte is also haploid. And next question, how many meiotic divisions takes place? How many mitotic divisions takes place for complete development of embryo sac? So how many mitotic divisions will be resulting in the formation of a complete embryo sac? Here, let's see one more diagram. So this is, in this diagram, it is the functional megaspore. The functional megaspore, it enlarges in size, and this one nucleus, it undergo first mitotic division resulting in the formation of 2 nuclei, and again they undergo second mitotic division resulting in the formation of 4 nuclei. Again it undergo third mitotic division resulting in the formation of 8 nucleate embryo sac. But here you should remember one thing, these divisions are mitotic divisions but only free nuclear divisions, which means the nuclear divisions are not immediately followed by cell wall formation, only we can observe the free nuclear condition. So here 3 mitotic divisions results in the formation of embryo sac. So how many mitotic divisions takes place for complete development of embryo sac? It is 3. And next one, inside 3 mitotic divisions which occurs in the megaspore they are strictly free nuclear and not immediately followed by cell wall formation. Now only I told you that nuclear divisions are mitotic divisions which are only free nuclear divisions which are not immediately followed by cell wall formation. And next question, typical female gametophyte is, the female gametophyte is nothing but embryo sac. It is usually 7-celled and 8 nucleate. We always say that it is a 7-celled and 8 nucleate. So why it is a 7-celled 8 nucleate means, here you can observe there are 3 cells. After the cell wall formation, there are 3 cells at the chelazal end and there are 3 cells at the micropylar end. So here 3 plus 3, 6, and here these 2 are not cells, these are the 2 polar nuclei which are present in the central cell. So this complete thing is the central cell. So totally there are 7 cells. 3, 3 and this central one. There are 7 cells but 8 nucleate condition. So why 8 nucleate means here there are 3 nuclei, here 3 nuclei, but here 2 nuclei. So there are totally 8 nuclei. So it is 7-celled and 8 nucleate embryo sac. And next question, what is A in this figure? So actually it is a linear megaspore tetrad which are obtained from the meiotic division from the megaspore mother cell. So it is megaspore tetrad and generally we will call it as a linear tetrad. And next one, egg apparatus consists of, egg apparatus. If we draw the embryo sac, in this embryo sac at the micropylar region, there are 3 cells called as egg apparatus. The 3 cells are called as egg apparatus, and egg apparatus comprising of 1 large egg cell and 2 pear-shaped synergids. So the correct answer is both A and C. 2 synergids and 1 egg cell together, it is called as egg apparatus. And next question, the cellular thickenings at the tip of micropyle is. So in these synergids, there are some finger-like projections or cellular thickenings which guide the pollen tube to enter into the embryo sac. They are called as filiform apparatus. And these filiform apparatus are the cellular thickenings present only in the synergids. And next question, the cells located at the chalazal end are called. The cells which are usually present at the chalazal end are called as antipodals, and the cells which are present at the micropylar end are called as egg apparatus. So egg apparatus is usually present at the micropylar end and the antipodals are usually present at the chalazal end. Next question, identify the parts A and B in this figure. So it is actually the megaspore mother cell. It is actually the megaspore mother cell. The B indicates megaspore mother cell and the remaining A is called as nucellus. Actually nucellus, it is a mass of parenchymatous tissue which usually provides nourishment and which is having abundant food reserve. So out of the nucelluses, any one of the nucellus cell which develops into megaspore mother cell. So here the diagram shows that only A is the nucellus and B the megaspore mother cell which obtained from the nucellus cell only. And next question, the central cell. So what the central cell contains? Already I told you, the central cell comprising of 2 haploid nuclei called as a polar nuclei and contains 2 haploid nuclei. Those 2 haploid nuclei only called as a polar nuclei and located in the center of the embryo sac. Yes, in the embryo sac, the central region or central cell is called as the central part of the cell is called as central cell, which contains usually 2 polar nuclei. And next question, the cells in the embryo sac located at the micropyle end are egg apparatus. Already I told you the cells which are present at the micropylar end are called as egg apparatus. If they are present at the chalazal end, they are called as antipodals. Next one, the male and female gametes of angiosperms are respectively. Here the male gametes, there are 2 male gametes which are present in the pollen grain, they are non-motile, and the female gamete, that is egg, which is present in the embryo sac is also non-motile. But in case of lower plants, you will say that the female gamete is non-motile but the male gametes are motile. But in case of angiosperms, both male and female gametes are non-motile. So here option D is correct. Male gamete is also non-motile and female gamete is also non-motile. Next, after 3 meiotic divisions in the functional megaspore, the gametophyte embryo sac has how many cells? So actually here they are not meiotic divisions. After 3 mitotic divisions in the functional megaspore, the embryo sac has 7 cells. Already we discussed it is comprising of 7 cells. 3 cells antipodals at the chalazal end, 3 cells at the micropylar end called egg apparatus, and the 1 central cell. Altogether it is 7 cells. Next, pollination is essential in angiosperm plants because option A, it decreases the time required for fertilization, and both of the male and female gametes are non-motile and they need to be brought together for fertilization. It is useless process, both A and B. So here option B is correct because pollination is very essential in angiosperms because both male and female gametes are completely non-motile and they need to be brought together for fertilization. And the next question, the below figure represents. It is a typical stamen. You know that the androecium comprising of stamens and single stamen comprising of each stamen comprising of two parts, the anther and filament. So this is the slender part called as a filament and the terminal fertile part is called as anther and this one is a complete stamen. So option B, it is a typical stamen. So typical stamen, that is the correct answer. And next question, pollination in plants is referred to as. What do you mean by pollination? It is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the pistil. So pollination can be defined as option B, that is transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the pistil. Next question, autogamy refers to. You know that in case of pollination, there are different types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Here autogamy refers to transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the same flower. Within a single flower, the pollen grains of the same flower has to be fall on the stigma of the same flower. So that condition is called as autogamy. So option B is the correct answer, transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the same flower. Next one, what is observed in a normal flower which opens and exposes the stigma and anther? If a flower which opens and exposes the stigma and anther, we cannot completely expect autogamy because if both anther and stigma associated very close to each other, we can expect autogamy. When they are well exposed at that time, the complete autogamy is very rare. As they are well exposed, the complete autogamy is rare. And next question, plants which produce two types of flowers are. You know the two types of flowers are cleistogamous flowers and chasmogamous flowers. Cleistogamous flowers are called closed flowers and chasmogamous flowers are called as open flowers. So these two types of flowers can be seen in all of these. In case of viola, in case of oxalis and even in case of commelina, they produces two different types of flowers. Next, the two types of flowers found in autogamous plant is. So here flowers similar to flowers of other species with exposed anthers and stigma and flowers which do not open at all. So your correct answer is both A and B because if the flower do not open at all, both anther and stigma lie very close to each other, we can expect the autogamy. And even if the flowers similar, if the flowers are very similar to the flowers of other species also, we can expect autogamous condition. Next question, dash flowers produces assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. Usually in case of angiosperms, pollinators are very required for the fertilization as the male and female gametes are non-motile. But in case of cleistogamous flowers are the closed flowers. So in these closed flowers, we can expect assured seed set, which means seed formation will be expected, or there will be confirmation of seed formation even in the absence of pollinator. Why? Because as the flowers are closed, they do not open at all. As they are closed, both anther and stigma lie within the same flower. They lie very close to each other. There will be a fertilization and there will be a formation of seed in case of closed flowers. And next question, a type of cross-pollination involving a pollinating agent is genetically similar to autogamy since pollen grain come from the same plant. It is called as getinogamy. So what is actually getinogamy means the transfer of pollen grain from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower within the same plant. In the same plant, there are two flowers. From one flower, the pollen grains will be transferring to the other flower of the stigma. So that condition is called as getinogamy and it is similar to autogamy, are genetically similar to autogamy because the pollen grains are coming from the same plant, not from the other plant. even it is of from the different flower, but both the flowers are present in the same plant, as it receives pollens from the same plant, it is genetically similar to autogamy. And next one, what are the parts A, B, C, D and E in the below figure? It is a part of the structure of anther. Here A, it is the outermost layer of the anther called as epidermis. B is the endothecium. C, they are the middle layers. And D, it is D is the sporogenous tissue and E is the tapetum. See, E, it is the tapetum which is rich in cytoplasm and nuclei. We'll see the options. So your option A, it is epidermis. B, endothecium. C, middle layer. D, we can say microspore mother cell or sporogenous tissue. That sporogenous tissue only develops into microspore mother cell. That's okay. Here D is the microspore mother cell and E is the tapetum. And next question, the only type of pollination during which pollination brings genetically different types of pollen grains to the stigma. If it brings genetically different types of pollen grains, it is absolutely called as cross-pollination or xenogamy. It is the only type of pollination which brings genetically different types of pollen grains, which means from other species or from the other plant, it is termed as xenogamy. And next question, majority of the plants uses which types of pollinating agent? Majority of the plants, they uses biotic factors. They uses biotic agents, which means there are biotic agents also and abiotic factors also. Abiotic agents are the wind and water, whereas biotic factors may be the animals, birds, insects, etc. So majority of the plants uses the biotic agents. And next question, what are A and B in the following figure? So it is a structure of pollen grain. Here A represents vacuoles and B represents the nucleus. So A is the vacuole and B is the nucleus. Next question. So dash proportion of plants uses abiotic agents for pollination. We know that majority of the plants uses biotic agents and only a small proportion of plants uses abiotic agents for pollination. And next one, dash factor is responsible for the contact of pollen with stigma in wind and water pollinated plants. It is actually a chance factor because in case of wind and water pollination, the pollens may reach the stigma by chance. But we cannot give assurance here. It is a chance factor is very responsible for the contact of pollen with the stigma in case of both wind and water pollinated plants. Next one, enormous amount of pollens are produced in wind and water pollinated plants. So why there will be a formation of enormous amount of pollen grains in case of wind and water pollinated plants? See option A, to compensate for uncertainties for contact of pollen with the stigma, to compensate the loss of pollen grains, to ensure pollination for large number of ovules present, both A and B. Here actually both A and B are correct. The pollen grains has to reach the stigma, but the pollens, if they are very less number of pollens, the pollens cannot reach the stigma. That's why to compensate the uncertainty, that is one reason, and to compensate the loss of pollen grains. So as the pollens cannot reach the stigma accurately, many number of pollen grains will be released or formed. So out of that, few pollens may reach the stigma. That's why both A and B. Next, most of the common abiotic pollinating agent for plant is, most common abiotic factor will be anemophily, that is pollination by wind. And next question, light and non-sticky pollen grains are favorable for. So light and non-sticky pollen grains are the characteristic features of anemophily, that is wind pollinated plants. So here they are usually light, the pollen grains are usually light and non-sticky. Next question, which of the following are true for wind pollinated plants? They have well exposed stamens, large and often feathery stigma, single ovule in each ovary, and large number of flowers packed into an inflorescence. Actually, all these are exactly the characteristic features of the wind pollinated plants. So they have well exposed stamens, the stigmas are usually large and feathery, they contain single ovule in each ovary, and large number of flowers are packed into an inflorescence. So here all are correct. Next one, wind pollinated flowers have. So these wind pollinated flowers have single ovule in one ovary. Is correct. More than one ovule in ovary? No. And they have been packed into an inflorescence. So A and C both are correct. In case of wind pollinated flowers, they contain single ovule and the flowers are usually packed into inflorescence. And next question, the tassels of corn cob are. The tassels, the tassels refers to the hair-like structures which you can see in the corn or maize. So in the corn or maize, you will find the hairy-like structures. The hairy-like structures, are nothing but the stigmas and styles. So here the correct answer is option A, stigma and style. Yes. Option B, they are meant to trap the pollen grains in wind. As the common mode of pollination is wind pollination, so in order to catch the light and non-sticky pollen grains, the stigma and style will be usually hanging or which will be suspended to catch the pollen grains. So these are few questions which we can discuss today. Remaining questions we will continue in the next class. Thank you.